Hello, it's July 14th, 2022, and this is the weekly Backdrop Developer Meeting. We get together every week to talk about priorities and issues with Backdrop Core and beyond. My name is Nate Lampton. I'm Quick Sketch on the internet, and I'm a core committer for Backdrop Core. And I'm joined here today by a couple other people. We'll go to, and I'm from Oakland, California. We'll go to Robert and then Joseph.
I'm Robert Lang, bug folder on the internet. I'm coming to you from Altadena, California.
Thanks, Robert. Joseph and then Jen.
I am Joseph. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Thanks, Joseph.
Jen Lampton also joining from Oakland, California. Back to you, Nate. Oh, wait, do you want me to do the Backdrop Live update now?
Yeah, go ahead. We've got some announcements, and you can do the community update as well. That would be great.
Okay, well, that's sort of community related. So starting tomorrow at 8 o'clock Pacific time, 11 o'clock Eastern, I don't know what time UTC, we are starting the 6th Backdrop Live. It will go for 3 hours on, 3 hours off, all through Friday and through halfway through Saturday, maybe more than halfway through Saturday. We have a whole bunch of discussions scheduled, so that's where a bunch of people are going to come hang out in a Zoom room and talk about stuff. It's rather informal. You don't need to do any preparation ahead of time. You can drop into any sessions as you like. Anyone who wants to attend should go to events.backdropcms.org. You can register there and you can take a look at the stuff that's already on the schedule. So anyone who's interested in Backdrop might be watching this video between now and tomorrow morning or Saturday afternoon is welcome to come and join that event. It's open to all. Also, speaking of community, we've had a bunch of great contributions in the last few weeks. The first project the most recent project that was released is a new contributed module called Reference to Entity Reference Field Migration. And that's a port of a Drupal 7 module that will move node reference and user reference to entity reference module. So if you were using node reference or user reference on your Backdrop site, you want to use entity reference, this module is for you. If you were using reference on your Backdrop site and want to move to entity reference, there will be an upgrade path in the near future, though exactly where that'll be is undetermined. Nate mentioned before this meeting that it might be possible to put it into the reference to entity reference field migration module, so I'm going to take a look at that. It's also very similar architecturally between reference and entity reference. It might just need an update, so I'll take a look at that and see if that might be an easier path forward. Herb Duel worked on that, so thank you, Herb Duel, for doing all of your work on entity reference and this contrib module in addition to everything else you're doing. We also have one other contributed module that came out in the last 2 weeks. It's called User Email Display. I'm not sure whether we talked about it last week or the week before, but I didn't want it to get missed, so put that back on the list here. Thank you for the User Email Display contrib module. This is one that was written by Alejandro. So thank you, Alejandro.
All right. Let's see. Topics for today. We have a forum post under the forum, forum.backdropcms.org for each one of these weekly meetings. There weren't any posts this week for things to be discussed during this meeting. But Joseph, who is here in this meeting, has some update. He's been working on cache tags. It's been a performance issue. I think we were targeting it for the last release or maybe the release before, but it's a complicated, gnarly issue. And so it's been taken off of the like having a particular milestone target, and it's just kind of an ongoing effort that he's been working on. So yeah, Joseph, tell us how cache tags is coming along and where things are.
All right, so the current state of the pull request, it has, I believe everything is working as intended on PHP versions 7 and up. However, versions prior to 7 don't allow an interface extending another interface to change the parameters on a method. But because we have to add new method parameters in order to require people to actually pass an array of cache tags into the cache functions, it breaks on older versions of PHP. So that's kind of the big issue. It's just it doesn't work on PHP 5.6. And I am not sure of a way around that because I mean, like, I don't know. I just don't know how I would get around that without allowing people to add the cache tags.
Interesting. That's the holdup. Is it you're saying that one interface extending another interface? Is that
Yes.
what you
So
said?
we have a cache interface, and then we have a cache taggable interface that extends it. And the default cache interface doesn't have any cache tag handling.
Mhm.
And the one that extends it adds a tags array as a parameter to the functions that look up data from the cache.
Would there be a reason why, or would it have some downside if all cache bins were always taggable? And so
We
and
could do
like
that.
and just sometimes they would be empty, you know?
As far as I'm aware, the only real downside there is that it would break compatibility with contributed modules that had cache backends, such as the Redis and the MongoDB modules.
That had what? That had cache what?
They add cache backends that use alternate databases for the cache.
Right. Uh-huh.
So Redis, Memcache, Mongo, those modules would have API breaks.
Yeah, I think that might be. Oh, yeah, I could see that possibly being a problem if their interfaces or their classes extended the current interfaces, but didn't have those parameters. That could be a problem.
Right.
Um, yeah. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what PHP's behavior is when you add a parameter, even if it's like an optional one. I think that sometimes it throws errors if not all parameters are specified in extended classes.
Right.
Can you
Okay.
not set default values?
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking, but I think that it complains at you even if there is a default value.
Yeah, if we're removing a parameter that's required in an upstream version, then it throws errors.
Yeah, totally, if we're removing one, but I thought we were talking about adding one.
Right, but so we'd be adding one, but in the new environment, then the Redis or Memcache modules would be removing them.
Because we added them, so the Memcache is removing ours. Yeah, because it wasn't there before. Interesting.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, if we make them default out of the box, then PHP will think that those modules are removing parameters.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think those modules are in very heavy use, so we could coordinate like releases. Although I don't know if there's any way of like enforcing like certain versions of modules with certain versions of core.
I think there is.
I mean, not like we can't have multiple supported. Oh wait, you can have multiple versions on a project page.
You could like push an update to the current version that says it has to be less than like backdrop 123, and then the next version could depend on 123.
Right.
But I mean, it is still possible that someone updates or and not their module, and then they have that problem. But then the solution would be update the module.
Right. Yeah. The downside there is that if they updated core without updating the module, then they'd end up in a white screen of death situation on their website.
Yeah. Does all versions of PHP white screen of death, or is it only in PHP 8?
No, the problem is only on PHP below 7.
Oh.
A pretty limited problem, possibly.
So on 7 and up, the patch actually just works fine, and it doesn't require any changes on any of the modules cases. It's only older versions.
That's harder.
Well, Joseph, it sounds like you're saying that it's working. Does that mean that you're wanting code review on the overall approach and implementation at this point?
Sure. Actually, if people want to do code reviews, I don't think I've marked it that way. I could do that.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful because there's even this one particular problem aside, there might be lots of other suggested changes and concerns
Okay.
that
Yeah.
might not be related to this particular version problem.
Mhm.
Oh, good. Well, that sounds exciting. Yeah, I'm curious just to hear your based on your experience so far building that out, what kind of impact this would have on existing code bases? Like, how much work is it going to be to go through and start adding tags to everything that doesn't have it so far?
As far as core, so the pull request adds cache tags to all core entities and anything that depends on cache tags and core entities. Work in other modules. As far as adding the cache tags when you're loading a custom entity, not that much. Probably it'll be more work if you are building something that renders other entities nested inside of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Probably paragraphs would actually be the hardest one.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I'd be curious to see how well this works. In the years now that it's been since Drupal has had cache tags, it's still pretty frequently a problem that on the projects I've worked on, that developers just have a lot of issues getting the cache tags correct, and so you end up with a lot of stuff that ends up like not clearing. So yeah, I'm not quite sure what to really do about that though. I mean, if we had this caching, caching will probably get more aggressive. Um, it won't just automatically clear itself out most of the time. But
Right.
we'll see. I don't. Backdrop also doesn't really have like partial page caching like Drupal does, so potentially we won't have quite the same level of problem that Drupal does.
Right.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, the trouble with Drupal is that it has so many caches. The render caches, just like on absolutely everything, and a lot of that stemmed from the problem that was created because the templating system is so slow. So yeah, we have got in some ways like some advantages that we don't need to cache as much. If we don't cache as much, that's less potential for error with the cache tag configuration.
Yeah. I think for us this is a PR move.
Yeah, well, I think there should be a very real benefit in the event that you're using a reverse proxy of some kind. Like if you're using Varnish or if you're using a CDN like
Right, yeah.
Akamai or Fastly, like that's really the best use of cache tags in my mind, is that benefit that you can get on-demand cache clearing like in your reverse proxies.
Right.
So yeah, it's definitely kind of this is a larger site would see the greatest benefit.
Yep.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you, Joseph, and thank you for the continued work on that. That's really amazing to hear that you're still chugging along on that. I know it's a gnarly issue. Let's see, Jen. We've also got this design meeting in the general discussion. Is that anything that needs to be?
Yeah, that was just in the forum today. There was a post to talk about the layout issue with placeholders versus wildcards being confusing. There's an update on that in today's design meeting. So if you want to hear a summary of the problem, you can watch that. current status is there are 3 pull requests with very different approaches, and if anyone wants to weigh in on those, we need help deciding which, if any, or all approaches we should pursue.
Yeah, that got brought up in the design meeting.
Well, it's a user experience issue, right? We don't know how to use the layout interface because you put in, reports/star and it doesn't do what you want. Put in
Okay,
resort
so that's
stress
issue
percent and it still doesn't do what you want.
issue 1602. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, I have seen that there's been a lot of discussion on that in this past week, so great. Let's see. Just generally speaking, if we go into an update on just issues and development that's been happening in core, there's been a lot of activity as of late. Community is being very active, developing new functionality and fixing bugs. It's been great. The 122.1 milestone has 21 merged issues now. I think we're still waiting on that. The layout context relationships sometimes get the wrong context. I don't have that issue number here, but that issue, I think that it's ready to go. It's marked needs review, but I think that Alejandro has actually looked at it as a Stockwell month. So, but once that issue is completed, I think that we'll be looking at the 122.1 release coming out pretty quickly after that, just because we're really accruing an awful lot of fixes in the 122 branch. So, so we've got that around the corner. Probably coming up pretty soon here. There's only 4 remaining RTBC issues, and 2 of them are blocked, I think. So, yeah, we're really closing in on getting to a good place for a bug fix release. All right. Well, the real big news this week, and I feel kind of silly having waited this long into the meeting to announce it, but in the 123 release, we have merged issue 1301, which is adding entity reference into core. So it's a huge deal. Moving entity reference into core wholesale from the contrib version really solidifies our solution for handling references permanently and into the future. And Herbdul really did an excellent job getting that pull request put together, as well as maintaining the contrib version and getting it ready for core inclusion. He also followed up really quickly with there were 3 additional commits that had been made to the contrib version that he made pull requests for after it was merged, and those changes are also merged into 123 as well. So yeah, he's doing a really excellent job, and I think that this week's official release of the entity reference field migration also is timed really well. That he's trying to help people that have chosen other reference module solutions for Backdrop and get them merged or get them moved over to the new entity reference that is part of core. So that's really great to be able to say that when 123 comes out, there's already potential solutions out there to get people onto the entity reference module provided by core. So yeah, very exciting. Huge thank you. We had over 20 contributors to that issue, but yeah, Herbdul was the one that basically carried the final solution there. So very exciting. We do have another issue and several other issues that are coming out of this one. We actually have a talk. Let's see. During Backdrop Live, that is like, what do we do next? I think it's actually tomorrow night, for me at least. It's at 8 p.m. and 8 p.m. Pacific. And so we'll be discussing, or we have a session to kind of discuss, like, what needs to be done, what things are still left, what we'll do about other places that use references like taxonomy module, and we'll just discuss that during that session. Okay, let's see. Other issues that are moving along. Jen, I'm curious if you want to do an update on issue 647 field group functionality. Anything to mention there?
So I don't think there's been an update since last week, but where it's standing right now is that I am threatening to remove the vertical tab that allows you to clone a field group, for example, from a form display to a front end display. What is that called? Just a display. manage display because it's really hard to figure out how to add it to the manage fields page in a way that is not confusing. We do have some other follow-up issues about cleaning up the manage fields page in a way that would allow us to add the manage group or add group option in a way that we could allow it to be cloned from other displays later. So there's an option down the road to add it back, but this would mean that when it went from contrib to core, we'd be losing that feature. So I don't know if that's going to be acceptable. If not, we could pursue the option of switching from a vertical tab on that page to a action link, which was what the recommended solution would be, where it would just say add field group, and then you could choose to clone one from another display on the second page, so that it wouldn't be on the managed fields page itself. But we don't have any progress towards that yet.
Isn't that essentially the same thing that we were talking about doing with the fields, moving like add a field to its own page as well?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that seems, I don't know, seems like that it's moving us in the right direction anyway, because that's what we want to do for fields, I think.
So does that mean that rather than removing the vertical tab, I should work on adding the action link instead?
Well, I mean, there's that would be one approach, but if what you're removing is a convenience, is that right?
Yeah.
Then that doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. Like, as long as you
Okay.
can still achieve the same end result,
You
even if it's
can.
more tedious, then then that's not it's not like a compatibility problem. It's a feature
Okay.
reduction, sure,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, all the configuration is going to be identical. It's just if you want the same thing on the manage form and the manage display, you have to build it twice.
Yeah.
So you go to the manage form when you create the thing, and then you drag and you add and you add and you add, and then you go to the manage display. You do exactly the same, repeat exactly the same process twice. So it's definitely possible to achieve the same goal. It just takes a lot more time. But if the goal is to move the action link in the long term, we would immediately open up a follow-up issue that's like add group to action link, and then we could work on sure there was a clone option in there in addition to create view.
Yeah, my initial upon hearing this is that this could happen like separately, that the restoration of that feature could happen
Okay.
in follow up.
Okay.
Let's see. Jen, looks like you also volunteered to give the update on 4569, the allow an admin to hide the title on comments.
Yep. So Tim gave us an update on this at the beginning of the meeting. He said that he got all the tests passing, but he wanted a second review on them because he's not sure that what he did to get them passing is the right thing to do. So last time we talked about this at a weekly meeting, he asked for help writing tests, and I helped him write tests, and everything was not passing when I left him. So he's fixed that, and now he just wants to make sure that everything is working the way it's supposed to. So that sounds like it's pretty close.
Great. Yeah, thanks for helping Tim with that. That's fantastic. Yeah, that's all we've got for 123. I've got a general question. I haven't found the issue for this. Maybe if I looked around a little bit further, but I was working on a project and I needed to limit the list of allowed formats, like per field, so that let's say you have 5 text formats on your site, but you only want one of them to ever be used on a particular field, or you have another field that uses 2 of them, but not the other 3 type situation. Also, sometimes like we have a site that uses paragraphs, and one of the paragraph types is actually called Markdown, and it's the only place that Markdown is ever allowed versus other paragraph types, and so you end up with a text format that is only ever used on one particular field. And I found that we don't have a port of the allowed formats module, but we do have BW Panda's preferred text format module, which is pretty close in functionality. But I don't think that we have a core request yet. It seems like this should just be something that's in core, because this sort of thing happens all the time, I feel like, and it's not like a big expansion. Like BW Panda's module is like 100 lines of code.
Is it on the per field? It's like a field setting.
Yeah, it's a field setting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another issue too that I think Robert and I were working on about allowing you to set a default text format. I'm not sure that's been merged either, but it's the same thing where it seems like kind of a no-brainer, wasn't ever in core. But yeah, if you want to create an issue to put either of those in core, I think that's a great idea. I think it's a relatively small change and would be a good improvement.
Yeah, and yeah, okay. The task of default is a little bit extra tricky.
Well, it's
Because there's like the
like for example, the same scenario you're describing, where like you want people to always have access to the advanced format, but there's one in particular where you know they're always going to be putting in a table or something. So rather than making them change it every time they create that node or whatever, you could just say on this node it's going to be this other one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is tricky because of the weights, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
the
sort
weights,
of supposed
exactly.
to, yeah.
Yeah, I see kind of the issue is actually text formats. If you start moving settings to a per field basis, then more of the settings should be per field, and the global settings shouldn't even really exist. Like the weights on the text formats don't really matter if you're going to start having to have per field.
Well, they do because the weights still control like the order they appear in the select too.
Right, right. But based on what you just said, you could have a field where you want to change the order, where one
Oh, I
particular
didn't want to
text
change the
format is
order.
more
I just
likely.
wanted to set the default. That's
But
all I was doing. I mean, you might
okay.
have a scenario where you want to change the order, or we're talking now about like removing some from the list.
Yeah, I
But I
think
still think,
what I'm thinking is that the default should always be the first one. So so based on the field, the order could potentially be different.
yeah, I still think that might be confusing because things in a select list, I don't know. The way select list is supposed to work is that the user is supposed to know everything that exists in that list, right? Otherwise, it would be radio buttons. And so if you have a familiarity with your website and you're like, okay, I know there's 4 text formats, and I know that the basic format is always the first one. And then if you start moving them around, does that like make it less intuitive? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. But that's just where my
Plus, if you wanted to change the order, you'd have to change it in every single one of your fields now, which is also a problem.
Oh yeah.
Well. Anyway, I think maybe I'm just getting too caught
Slippery
up
slope.
in the details there, because the solution, I mean, there's already contrib solutions for this problem, and they're quite simple. And I think that's all that I'm asking for, is that we get the simple solution, like allow a reduction in the list of text formats on a per field basis. And I think that would be a huge help. But yeah, I don't think there's an issue for that yet, so I might make one.
Okay.
Okay. That's it, I think, for the updates this week. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to bring up? Okay. Well, we'll close for today. Once again, Backdrop Live starts tomorrow, so I hope to see some of those out there watching this tomorrow. That would be excellent. And yeah, thanks for being here, everyone, and thanks for watching.